Welcome to My Life. I'm John Ochins, and I'm with Dr. Nicholas Szluha, who is a noted veterinarian in our area and has been for nearly 50 years now. We've covered a lot of Dr. Szluha's early life, and now we're getting into that part of his life where World War II took place, things started happening in his home country of Hungary, his family life changed, and eventually he found his way here to America. So thank you again for being with us, Dr. Szluha. In our last episode, the last thing we talked about was when things started to change for you and your family.
Yeah.
Your family was very well educated. Your father had a 1,000-acre farm. He had a lot of employees. But then it was during World War II when some of this started to change, wasn't it?
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
In 1945, my father was in the American POW in Germany. And then
So was he a soldier for the German army then?
no, Hungarian army.
For the Hungarian army.
But when the Russian taken over Hungary piece by piece, they moved to Germany. But they were not fighting the Americans there, but they were just kept in Germany. And when the war was over, they went over to the Americans, and he was in the American prison from end of the war, May until October.
Now, he was not a young man at this time,
He was
he?
41 years old.
41.
Yeah.
What happened to his business during this?
He was an officer in the Hungarian.
I bet he was.
He was a captain in the Hungarian military.
What happened to his farming business during this time?
To what?
His farming business.
In 45, when the Russian came in, a couple of months later, they formed the Communist Party. And the Communist Party divided up your land. The Communist Party gave 5 acres per the employees and 1 acre per child. So we lost 900 acres and left back 100 acres. But the problem was that those people didn't have equipment, so actually they had 5 acres plus 1, 2, 3 acres. They came back to us and they said they're gonna farm our land and they can use our equipment for their land. So actually they stayed back to us to working, and they were taking care of our land. And this was going on like this, and we had very, very hard time with the local communists. See, my father came home in October 45, and the Russians were in the town. There was a Russian officer who was taking over everything, and they were bothering all the time, you see.
You were a teenager at this time, weren't you? How old were you then?
14 years old.
14 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was in the high school, I wasn't home. See, and lots of time it happened that the Russian came in a horse wagon, and then the local employees who used to employees ran over and circled around my father because the Russian wanted to kill him.
Really?
Yeah, that was the condition. Like you see, my mother used to have a truck for transportation for money, and then during the month of August, my father wasn't home yet. We used to have watermelons, and it was a big business. And the truck was loaded with watermelons because it was taken up to Budapest for the and then the chauffeur was sleeping, and the Russian came in and stole the truck and took the truck to the Russian office, and then when the chauffeur get up, there was no truck. So we walked to the Russian office, and there was the truck, you know, and the Russian officer wanted to a big amount of money from my mother to get back the truck. So we had this kind of life over there.
Were the Russians jealous of the way you lived, or what?
The Russian was very, 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 very mean. See, the Russian didn't like, they called bourgeois. See, bourgeois means
Upper class.
yeah, and that was the upper class was completely destroyed by the Hungarian communists.
Okay. So how long were you able to continue the farm under those circumstances?
Until 1949. In 1949, they took over in 24 hours. They come in and they took over the castle.
The Russians,
No, the Hungarian communists.
the Hungarian communists.
Yeah, by that time the Russians were gone, but the Hungarian communists came over in 24 hours, took over. They took the castle, everything, and they took the farm equipment and everything what is left.
Could you see that coming, or was that a complete surprise?
No, we saw it coming.
So I would imagine you and your family were kind of living in fear from day to day,
Exactly.
not knowing what was going to happen.
In the communism, the communist secret police sometimes pulled up at night, picked you up, and never see them again.
Did you lose a lot of friends that way?
Lots of friends, lots of friends. And the Hungarian communist police constantly was bothering you. You had to sign in every month that you are still there and you were under control by the communist police.
Yeah. How did this affect your father, an educated man? How did this affect his day-to-day life?
My father, I tell you, my father, when we lost the farm, we have to move out in 24 hours. So we moved into the next town, and the next town was a Catholic church. And in Hungary, during the communism, the teacher of the town was the organist in the Catholic church. And the communists said, either you're going to be a teacher or the organist. Of course, you know, he wanted to be a teacher. But we just moved in during the week, and suddenly somebody came to my father to go to be an organist. So my father was an organist for 20 years there. And that was the livelihood. And the livelihood was very low because there was no pay.
Okay. I want to talk about your move from the castle to the next place in just a moment. We'll be right back.
You're watching Oxford Community Television, keeping it local.
Back to Dr. Nicholas Szluha. Dr. Szluha, you were telling us about the move when you were forced to move out of the castle. What was your next place like?
Well, before in 49, that summer, we thought that the local communist agriculture wanted us to move out. So my father went to this next town and tried to find a place that we move in. But because the local communist was against the high society, and the people were afraid to give us any kind of apartment. So finally we get into a very simple house where the back of the house used to be a chicken coop. So we get this part of the house where used to be a chicken coop. We had to clean it up and paint it out, and we moved into this place. And we were living there until 62.
That's quite a change.
Big change. And my father was the organist in the Catholic Church, and there was no income, only donations.
Did your mother work outside of the home?
My mother was crocheting.
She was.
So that was some income of crocheting.
Let me ask you this. How did your relationship with your parents change after going to this latest home?
Me and the parents,
Yes.
I was helping them out constantly,
Were you closer?
very close. I never done anything, I never went anything. When I had time, I always went home. And later on, I had a job. When I had a job, I gave home half of my income.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about how your life changed as the Hungarian Revolution approached.
Well, I have a underlying condition. During the 2.5 year hard labor, I was very angry against the communism. And then, when the revolution started, I was ready to join the revolution.
And I gather a lot of other people felt that way too.
Oh, everybody.
And you said hard labor. Was that the imprisonment you were talking about?
Yeah, I was hard labor. I was working in coal mines, rock mines. I was building Russian army buildings in Hungary.
Why did they put you there?
Because my high society,
Bourgeois.
every high society people, some reason they try to find something and put them in prison.
Were you able to live at home when you were going through this or not?
No. Oh, I had to put.
Were you able to keep in touch with your parents?
I was living behind barbed wires with the soldiers with gun around it.
What was your mother and father doing at this time?
My father was in the same town, organist.
He continued.
Yeah,
They were still able to live in the same place and
yeah,
continue on with
Yeah.
their lives. What about you say you had a brother and a sister?
yeah.
What about them? How were they affected by this?
My sister was in Budapest. She finished the high school, but she couldn't get into the university, so she got a job, some secretary job. And my brother was 7 years younger, and he went to the high school. And there was, all the high schools were taken away from the religious people, so from the priest high school.
Right.
But there was only one high school where the high school stayed with the priest, and they had a high school there, and my brother was going to high school
see.
there.
When did you get out of the camp?
In 1964, 9th of October,
No, out of the prison camp.
the prison camp.
Yeah.
Oh, 1954, 9th of October when I get out.
Okay, so there was about a 2-year period
Yeah.
between then and the start of the Hungarian Revolution.
And the reason I get out, because the prime minister changed, you see, and the prime minister was still communist, but they were more open-minded, so they let us go home.
So it sounded like things loosened up a little bit
Yeah.
for a couple of years.
Yeah, in 1955, when this prime minister became a prime minister, basically he was coming from the agriculture environment, so he lose up everything, because the agriculture, all the agriculture was under communism.
Right.
There was no private agriculture anymore. And then they lost up the agriculture, so you could have a couple garden or something like this before.
What was going through yours and your parents' minds about the future during all this?
They don't know nothing. We were hoping that United States is gonna free us, but it never tried it. And
There was a lot of false hope back then, wasn't there?
and the free Europe was always always telling, you know, that United States is
Radio Free Europe?
free Europe.
Yeah.
But you see, if you listen to Free Europe, find that you get 6 months in jail. So radio, what you have, had to be in the linen closet. And if somebody was coming along, then you have to close it, make sure nobody find out you're listening to Free Europe. If you did, they put you to prison, 6 months prison.
Okay. Tell me about the Hungarian Revolution.
Well, the Hungarian Revolution basically started from the university people who went
So
to,
it started with educated people.
and then started from the blue collar people. The blue collar people had very bad condition, you see. The blue collar people worked for norm. They had to complete a certain things a certain time, and when they completed, they increased the norm, and the money was less. So the blue collar people were also ready for the revolution. And I got into the revolution. At that time I was chauffeur for the Hungarian research laboratory. I was chauffeur for the president.
Was that a good job?
Very good job, very good job. And I had a nice manner and they liked me, you know. So, and then actually I didn't know nothing about the revolution. I saw some young people, group people protesting, and I didn't know what's gonna happen. And then suddenly, it was in the afternoon, suddenly in the evening, I saw truckloads of people go by on the main street in Budapest, and they were going to the Stalin statue. There was a big statue in Budapest, Stalin statue. So I get on the one
Stalin's statue.
Stalin.
Yes.
So I got on one of the truck, and I ended up at the Stalin statue, you know. And I was there on the statue and tying ropes and everything, you know.
Okay. We're going to take a little break here. What we need to remind people of is that the Hungarian Revolution was 12 days long, I believe.
Of what?
The Hungarian Revolution was 12 days long, right? It wasn't very long.
Two times. There was two-time revolution.
Yeah. And the sentiment changed greatly during that time.
Yeah.
There was a time when the people actually thought that they were going to pull this off and that things were going to be better, but then things changed.
Then started the big
Yeah.
Russian
Okay,
offensive.
we're going to take a little break and then we're going to talk about that in just a moment.
Hey Leonard, you're watching OCTV.
Back with Dr. Nicholas Szluha, talking about the Hungarian Revolution.
The first part of the revolution, from the Stalin statue, went to the radio station and took over the radio station in Budapest. It was a fight of the radio station because the roof of the radio station was lots of big lights, so you couldn't see behind it.
What were you doing?
I went there, and then there was a big, lots of people there, and then I was just there. And then you couldn't see through the lights, and then suddenly 3 Hungarian tanks came in, and one of the Hungarian tanks was an officer who was leading the revolution. And then they stick down a ladder from the balcony and he went up. And one of the tanks stayed here, the other went there, so I was walking behind the tank over there. And then suddenly from the side door a guy came out with a gun and I hit his head.
So you were right in the thick of things, weren't you?
So I took away the gun and then I was fighting in the revolution, in the taking over the.
Okay, at what point did you decide you couldn't stay?
Couldn't what?
Stay.
Stay. Well, and then next day, you know, the Russians were taking over all the city, and the Russian tanks were running around, and the Russian patrols were going around, and there was the real revolution, and the tanks started using the cannons to the buildings.
Wow.
And I was there on the street for a while, you know, and carried the gun and shooting the Russian, and then when too many Russians were, he just walked away and got into the some entrance of the big houses, and sometimes if too many Russians, you have to put your gun away, because if they find you, then shoot you right
Sure.
there.
When did
And
you...
this was the first part of the revolution. And by end of the week, you know, the Russians find out that we were not the Germans, you know, because they were told that we were Germans, the Nazis. They find out, and those Russians started on our side. So there was Hungarian flag on the tanks, and they were going around, and we said, we won the revolution. But you see, there was two things. When was this big lights on the radio station, suddenly they opened the machine guns on the people. And lots of people died right there before the tanks get there. And the tanks brought some guns and gave out. See? And the second was, it was on a Wednesday, Tuesday, and then Thursday there was a other big crowd in the Hungarian, it was the like the White House, you know?
Yes.
And then the communist police started shooting them from there, and there was lots of people died there too.
Wow.
And this was the first part. And then the Hungarian organized some volunteers, you know, to keep the order, and that was the first part. And then on 5th of November, the new Russian came in, and that was the real revolution.
Now you ended up in a refugee camp, didn't you?
I wasn't there anymore. I was in the refugee camp in Vienna.
When was that?
I left the country 7th of December in 46, you know, and I got to Austria, and then from the border I walked to Vienna, and then in Vienna.
This was after the revolution.
After the revolution.
Okay. Did your parents go with you?
No.
Okay.
They didn't
So
know
you were
where I was.
You were by you didn't know where they were, and you were by yourself.
Yeah, I didn't know where I was.
Okay.
And then when I got to Vienna, I was on the streetcar. I walked to Vienna, and then I got at the streetcar, and then I met 2 Hungarian refugees. And I said, I'm going to go to the police station to report myself, and said, don't go there, just come into the refugee camp. So I went to the refugee camp. And
How long were you there?
I was there from 8th of December until 15th of January.
And it was after that that you came to the United States, right?
From there, they took me to Wiener Neustadt, to another refugee camp, and from Wiener Neustadt I got to what's the name of this city, and end of November they put us in the train and we went to Bremenhaven on the boat.
Uh-huh.
And I came over by boat.
I see.
We left at 5th of February and I got to New York on 15th of February by
And
boat.
this was 1956?
56, right, 50, no, that was in 50, in January, you see, it's 57.
7, okay. Were you able to establish contact with your parents at all during this?
No, I couldn't get contact
Couldn't.
until I get to United States.
Okay, so you eventually ended up in Illinois, is that right?
Yeah, then I went to Illinois, yeah.
Okay.
Then I met my brother in Vienna. I met my brother in Vienna on the street because my brother escaped in different time. He escaped in 20th of December.
How'd you find each other?
I was in downtown Vienna and I met him on the street. He was just walking on the street. And
It was accident.
yeah, accident.
Wow.
Then I had a job already in Vienna because when I got to Vienna, I was looking for a job. I was working to a furniture transportation company, you know, loading up furnitures and trucks, and I was working there every day from 8 to 5. So I had an income there in Vienna. So when I met my brother was in a different refugee camp in the country. So I got on the train and I get there and I get a paper from the job that I have an income. So I took him out and put him in the same refugee camp.
Were you finally able to establish contact with your parents?
When we got here,
Here. Okay, what made you decide to come to the United States?
well, I tell you, it was a good question. My brother wanted to come to United States, all right? And I didn't want to break away from him. So I said, okay, I came because I spoke the German very good. So the Germans offered me free university and offered me job. And then my brother said he doesn't want to go to Germany. I said, okay, I come here, but I didn't speak one word English.
So, somebody who sponsored you to come to the United States?
The bishop from Peoria, Bishop.
Okay, and what people may not know is that you were a fencing champion, weren't you? At
Yeah.
the University of Illinois.
Yeah, I signed up to University of Illinois and I signed up for a veterinary medicine, but said it's too long. I said, okay. Then I changed it for engineering, then I signed back again for veterinary medicine, and then I saw there is some fencing there, so I showed how much I know fencing.
So did you learn some fencing over in the old country or not?
Oh yeah, I was fencing there.
And you know, when we say fencing, people think of swords, but you were fencing with a saber.
Right there.
There's so much more we could talk about, but we're out of time.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to have had you on our program. Thank you so much for sharing your life with us.
Well, I'm very glad to help you out, you know, and
Well, thank you very
if
much.
I can tell you, I have lots of things to say, you know.
Oh, I'm sure. It's Dr. Nicholas Szluha. Thanks for joining us.